everybody, welcome to Rumors versus Facts. My name is Roddy the Bulls. I will be your host for the next 20 minutes or so, as if we can get the show done that quickly. I'm joined by Lance McCurley and Jed May. Trent Smallwood is in the bullpen. We'll bring him up in a second. But first, before we get there, we got to have a big shout out to our sponsor. We haven't had a show in a while, so we're a little behind in mentioning our sponsor. We got to mention our friends at the Rogue Shop. They are a phenomenal partner with UGAsports.com. If you have what kept me from doing a show last week, which was dizziness, if you ever had vertigo, that is not cool. But if you're having trouble sleeping, which if they give you vertigo medication, you will sleep fine, but you'll feel like hell. If you don't want to feel like hell, but you want a good sleep aid, reach out to our friends at the Rogue Shop. They got you covered. Use promo code Bulldogs10. You'll get 10% off of any of the items they have out there. And it'll say on there, night use, or if you have sciatic pain, like somebody we know does, you can get the Delta 8 or the Delta 9 gummies, and they will tell you for chronic issues, for pain, like this one, the Delta 8 gummies, sleep/pain, 125 milligram chronic pain. So there's a lot of good stuff from our friends at the Rogue Shop. Just reach out to them. They will take good care of you. And again, without them, we would not have this show. So if you like watching Rumors versus Facts, the Georgia recruiting show, be sure to check out our friends at the Rogue Shop. Let's bring in Trent Smallwood. Trent, I went on vacation. Georgia picked up 4 commits. Got back in time to see Cortez Smith commit. We need to talk through a bunch of these guys. I'm putting you on there because you've been with me from the beginning, and every time I leave, you always tell me, who's going to commit. The first one that popped off was Shamari Earls. Tell me what the hell's going on with Mr. Earls.
Yeah, you flip from South Carolina. Just the size says everything. I mean, the size says everything. It's just perfect Kirby Smart cornerback. That's just if Kirby Smart can make one in the lab, he would make one like Keely Ringo and like Shamari Earls and like Tyson Campbell and all those guys. 6'2", long arms, ability to play bump man coverage, physical at the point of attack. I mean, ability to take on blocks on the outside in the screen game. Earls has got that, and he's got the speed to go with it too. So I wouldn't say he's quite as fast as Ringo, but I think he's probably a little bit twitchier in the hips than Ringo was. So I love Earl's game. I've said I think he's going to be a top 100, top 150 player if we're all said and done, if Jed does his job right. And I think it was a very good not only evaluation from the staff. I know he's committed to South Carolina, but just being able to go out there and get him on campus and flip a kid that's from Virginia. That was a big get.
Well, to Trent's point about the size, we've got him listed at 180 pounds there. When I guess I interviewed him after he committed. He told me he's up to 205 now. So 6'2", 205. He runs track. He does the broad jump and triple jump, or broad jump and high jump. So he's an all around just phenomenal athlete. And like Trent said, if Kirby Smart is creating corners in a lab, they're 6'2", 6'3", 200, 205 pounds, and this Shamari Earls is exactly that. So interesting guy. Good job of getting him on the radar, getting that relationship built. Got him in for an official visit while he was still committed to South Carolina. And then I guess it was about 2 weeks after that official visit, he ended up flipping.
He also likes cornerbacks that play wide receiver in high school, and Earls fits
First
that mold.
is taking the ball to the house.
Yep. You gotta have good hands. You don't want to have those cornerback hands. That's the reason why you're playing defense, is because you can't catch on offense. He'd rather have playmakers out there on the defense side of the ball.
Yeah, we were talking about Malachi Starks this morning on the show, and I mean, the first thing he did as a cornerback was make this, or a safety, is amazing interception on a diving catch, and that's what he did in high school. Played quarterback, wide receiver, everything. So that's the guy. I know, Lance, you're broken up about them flipping him away from South Carolina. I know it breaks your heart. What does he do for? What was he Georgia's first defensive back commit?
Second.
No, following Todd Robinson, he was the second. Todd Robinson, I think, popped a few weeks before, but yeah, like Trent said, I think this is a kid that is very underrated. I think right now, what do we have him as a 3-star?
He's like 21 at his position.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a kid that I think when he committed to South Carolina during their spring game that weekend. I remember just reading through interviews and transcripts, and I think he had said that he kind of rushed his commitment, and Kirby Smart got in there late and got his hooks in him and was able to successfully flip him.
Yeah, he's good at that. The next guy that popped within 24 hours that I was in Brazil, and I'm like, Shimani Earls thing popped, and we told you this one was coming. I was kind of expecting it. Big Jazir Jackson, 6'10 and a half, 6'10 and 3/4, 6'11, 330 pounds, class of 2024. So we've gone on the vault at UGAsports.com, which is where you need to hang out. That's where Lance, Jed, and Trent are putting up stories, or putting up notes. We put up a story or a post over there about this guy saying, look, he's a former basketball player, been out of school for a year, was prepared to go to the NBA draft. He might wind up enrolled at Georgia before long. And then we didn't hear anything. We heard about Florida. Trent, give us your thoughts on Jazir Jackson, and then Jed, I want you to explain how he wound up in Athens.
Yeah, a lot of people are concerned about the transition from basketball to football and not playing football throughout his career. And yes, it's going to be a transition, especially playing in the SEC. But the first thing you look at, and first thing you see on film is he's got excellent feet. He has the ability to bend. He's very athletic, and he's long. I mean, just not only is 6'11", but he's on the basketball court, you see him, dominating with those long arms. So he has all the abilities. Yes, the transition is going to come from, being able to get down everything at the offensive tackle, whether it be right or left. But all the tools are there. His athleticism's off the charts. He's fast for a 6'11" guy. Just watching him move up and down the basketball court. So I think this will be a little bit easier transition. He has played the sport before. It's not like he's never played the sport. Played in middle school, and he decided to focus
middle school.
But he decided to focus solely on basketball, and but with his size and his abilities with his footwork and his ability to bend and his ability to move out in open space. I love the pickup. I love why not take a chance on it? You're Georgia. You can take those chances because you have guys in the class. You signed 6 offensive tackles a year ago, so you have some wiggle room. If this guy comes in and is really transitions to the game and is turned into an All-American, great. If he doesn't, you have guys lined up, and Georgia has the ability to take those chances.
You got the time. Jed, how did you wind up in Georgia?
Yeah, so we camped at Georgia, camped at Florida State. I want to say camped at Florida. There's a third school in there as well. And it kind of just all flew under the radar until, he took an official visit the last visit weekend of June. And again, kind of like Shamari Earls, 2 weeks later, he's in the class. So been thinking about the college football game too much, but it's another. To Trent's point about people being worried about him not playing in forever, that's true, and there's going to be a learning curve and all that. Stacey Searles worked him out. The guys at Florida worked him out, and I guess they probably offered. Stacey Searles has seen him up close, and he's not going to be a starter this year. I would bet against him being a starter next year. But 2026, you could have a guy who kind of like Amarius Mims, who he's got 1 full year as a starter, and then he's out to the NFL. So there's, not really any downside to it, honestly. If he works out, it's a great find, great job. And if he doesn't, then, it's just like any other, recruit you sign and it doesn't work out, and he's encouraged to find greener pastures elsewhere. So, it's worth a shot for sure, because these type of frames don't come around very often, really in any sport, but especially in football along the offensive line.
Worst case scenario, just gets off the bus first.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
for the next couple of years.
Again, I was told the reason we knew he was coming to Georgia, we're telling everybody, hey, pay attention to this one. Nobody else even knew who the hell he was. We're like, hey, he was on campus next to a guy the size of Amarius Mims, and he towered over him. I'm like, Amarius is maybe the biggest guy I've ever seen in my life. This guy was bigger than that. So this is not a small body, and he's not just some lumbering guy like you said. This guy can actually move, and you're not in a hurry. He's a project. Hadn't played football, never played high school football. You're going to throw him into the SEC against the best defensive ends, outside linebackers, edge rushers in the college football game. Yeah, you got time. You don't have to throw him out there and let him get his butt beat, and then he's not ready for it. So, and hey, he's a center. He's used to banging bodies, so I think he's going to be.
And he's going to be good. I mean, you think he's going to be going up against Michael Williams and those people in practice. I mean, you put him on the scout team and you say, all right, this is what you got to be. This is what you got to be able to block. And going up against Michael and Damon Wilson and those guys, I mean, you're gonna get ready quickly, or you're not going to. So,
and Lance, I think you don't have to worry about like the scholarship numbers there.
Yeah, I think this is one where I think it's all NIL, and when he comes in and worst case scenario, and it didn't work out, he gets a degree and you get a guy like you just said, I think that a guy like this will make Michael Williams better, trying to get around this big body, especially when he's on the scout team. So I think it'll work out for all parties. And I just remember when we were in Jacksonville, I was talking to John Garcia, one of the Nashville guys, and he was like, yeah, that's the guy that towered over LeBron James in a photo a few years ago. And I think he played, if I'm not mistaken, he played basketball with Bronny James.
He did.
And I mean, yeah, he's super talented. I've watched some of his OT Atlanta highlights. It's not like he's just he's got like tree trunks for legs, but he can move just up and down the floor.
He can
pretty
move.
good touch with basketball too.
As a cornerback, George got Jaylen Morgan, class 2025 out of Rockville, Tennessee. Don't go back to Rockville. I think that's the song. Talk to the third defensive back in the class. Trent, tell me what George is getting in Jaylen Morgan.
Yeah, he's listed as cornerback. I see him more as a safety at the next level. He's kind of similar to a Chris Smith or those type of bodies. Very good. He's very instinctive. Understands coverages, and he's playing safety in that video. But I like that he's got good speed. He's he has the ability to play man-to-man coverage. Could play some nickel if he had to. But I think he'll come in cross-train between nickel and safety to start off his career. Again, another wide receiver. Had some pretty good numbers at the wide receiver position as well.
Jed, that was one of the things Kirby Smart pointed out was they need depth at their nickel spot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were talking earlier today. Do we know do we know for certain who Georgia's starting corner is, who their nickel guy is?
No, I don't think so. And I think that's a spot where, and if you expand it to safety and star, I mean, Malachi Starks is most likely going to be gone after this year. Dan Jackson, surely to God, is going to be gone after this year because he's got about 14 degrees now. David Daniel Sissaman is already gone, so that's a body out of the room. So you need to load up there, maybe more so than you do a corner. And yeah, like Trent said, I think Georgia wants him as a safety or star. I just found where he told me, he said Georgia's compared him to Javon Bullard and Kamari Lassiter. I guess maybe more so Javon Bullard as that safety star spot. So again, this is another one. It's so funny because how many times have we said on the show over the past couple months, the defensive backboards kind of like nobody knows, that'll shake out, whatever. we mentioned Shamar Earls coming on late. Jaylen Morgan popped up at the scavenger hunt. We're like, who is this guy? And then he comes back a month later for an official, and about a week or so after that, he commits. So another just great. I don't want to say late eval necessarily, but pushing all your chips into the middle of the table, I guess, and really turning up the heat on a guy who, Ole Miss was after him.
Florida was after
Florida, Mississippi State. I mean, there were some good programs after him. But at the end of the day, I mean, this quote pretty much sums it up. He says, "I want to be the best me possible. To be the best, you got to be with the best," and that's Georgia. So the development pitch certainly paid off, and it pays off at that position where you've got no better example than Javon Bullard to show of how guys can be developed in Athens.
Dude, if he hits like Bullard. Oof.
Yeah. And I know, let me add, and I know that he had previously been offered by Dante Williams when he was at USC and Travaris Robinson when he was at Alabama. So this is one of those guys that, these two, defensive coaches kind of brought in.
That makes perfect sense. Well, Jed and Jed's rankings has him at number 150 in the nation, number 13 at the cornerback spot. So Jed has been doing his job there pretty well. I do want to bring up this super chat from Andrew Mason. Andrew, we appreciate that. We do use all the super chats to get new equipment, so we don't use it to drink. He had a note that says, how many college centers actually played center in high school? I feel like the new college football game has too many high school centers. That's actually you guys are playing it. I'm not the one playing it, so
yeah, I
don't have to answer that one there.
The game is very realistic. I don't know that. I mean, I don't know. You could get a left tackle or a guard, and if he's 6'3", 295 pounds, you can change him over to a center. So I don't know if they thought too much about it. If we're talking about real life, Cortez Smith has been ID'd as a center for a long time. Last time I saw him, he was playing left tackle for Parkview, and it's one of those things where kind of like a lot of times you might put your best player at quarterback and just let him figure it out. You could put your best lineman at left tackle and make sure your quarterback's protected. I think that's the case with Cortez. He has played. I know he works at center in practice. I don't know off the top of my head if he's ever played center in a game. I'm sure he has. But yeah, I mean, especially at and Parkview 7A, especially if you're getting a school, a center from a smaller school, they might have to put him at left tackle just because he might be by far and away the best lineman on the team.
Yeah.
You got to make sure your quarterback's protected. So
it's been a long time since they brought in.
End up playing tackle or maybe even guard. I think Dontrell Glover plays guard, and he could end up a center in college as well.
Well, you're taking your best tackles. Those guys move to guards. Sometimes your guards as they move up. Your guards move to center. I mean, Cedric Van Pran was playing left tackle when I went to see him, so that's just how it is. But again, that's a good question, Andrew. We appreciate it. There's a few others. We'll get to those here in a minute. All right, so let's close the book on Jaylen and another guy they got out of Florida, Rashad Johnson, another athlete, 6'2", 190. Brent, what is Georgia getting in Rashad Johnson?
This kid's very interesting. I didn't know much about him. I was watching film on him, and if you watch film on him, they run at his high school at South Sumter. They run a lot of match coverage, and you don't see that much in high school. But it makes it's what colleges run. I mean, you see what Kirby runs a lot of match coverages. You see safeties having to play a lot of man to man, or there's different the things that they have to do on each play, but it could end up playing man to man on a safety, or man to man on a tight end, or man to man on a slot receiver, and he does a lot of this high school, and it just kind of shows that his abilities are kind of ahead of others at this stage, just because he's been doing it, and he has the ability to play man to man. I love when he you see him drop back some, but you see him come up and take on a slot receiver man to man, and he definitely has the ability to lock a slot receiver down or a tight end down, and he has good size, 6'2", and another one of those, build him in a lab. I think when we talk about Georgia needing depth at that star position, I think he's going to bring a piece to that equation. I could definitely see him as a star. I could see him moving towards like a free safety, but with his ability to play man coverage, you can cross train him at different positions and see what the best fit is, and that's what I like about his game. He could probably play any of the 5 positions at defensive back.
Jed, you do a great series. Whenever a kid commits, you guys talk to him. We do it behind the scenes. That's behind the paywall. When the kids want to talk about the reactions that the coaches have, hey, I told him I was coming. Kirby did a backflip. Dan, Glenn Schumann, ran around the room with firecrackers, whatever. That's the stuff we keep behind the paywall. But you do a good job. Another feature you do is how we got here, just kind of following the visits, following the quotes, following the ups and downs. It's like watching the stock market. Wasn't really looking at Georgia, then was looking at Georgia hard, then was committed to Tennessee, then back to Georgia. What's the backstory on this kid?
Yeah, this is the one that came about the quickest because Georgia didn't offer until July 3rd, and that was coming off an official visit, I'm pretty sure, to Louisville. And at that point in the cycle, where every time a new 2025 offer goes out, it catches your attention with, at 6 months till signing day at that point. So took an official visit to Penn State as well, and then took an official visit to Georgia. And after the Georgia official visit, it was kind of neck and neck. It was Georgia and Penn State. And Georgia ends up getting the win. And it's another guy who trusts the vision for development. I think he will end up a safety or star. I've had some people tell me that it's just we'll get him on campus and figure it out later, which is certainly possible. Prince said he could play wherever. But yeah, it's another, again, I don't know if it's a late eval necessarily or a guy that they've had on the radar, decided to go all in on, but it's a guy who seems like he's coming from a pretty advanced defensive system and a guy who's got some versatility. And that's all the things that Kirby Smart's looking for. So he's the 4th commit that probably, I don't know, it might round out the class. There might be one more. I wouldn't be surprised if one more, guy that for sure will end up a corner ends up in the class at some point. But not a bad few weeks for Georgia, going from 1 defensive back commit and Todd Robinson to now up to 4, and 4 really, really good players at that.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, Jed, did he camp at Georgia on?
Yeah. He camped, at some point.
Yeah, I think it was in late. It was in May.
Got in front of the staff, and they were impressed, and here we are.
And I think this is another one of those, like I mentioned about the last one, just just kind of late additions coming from Dante Williams and T-Rob.
Hey, I'll take any athlete out of Florida. We've said that numerous times. I'll say it again. And I do feel like that the coaches, we get caught up in the rankings. We get caught up in, well, this kid's 150, this kid's 21, whatever. I think Georgia's got their height, weight, speed, length, experience, scheme, like Trim was talking about. And if you hit 4 out of those 5, you got a spot. Because I believe that they think that they can train you up. Now, you can have your Ellis Robinson, your KJ Bolton, who are just elite, but you're not going to get all those guys. So you take your other guys that we may not get all excited about because they don't have crazy numbers and they're not the most obvious guy out there, Like, oh, geez, Ellis is obviously he's that guy. They're like, look, we can win a championship with a Christopher Smith. Put him in our system. We'll teach him how to play. Does he fit the parameters? We got him. So I think we're seeing a lot more confidence in their development than we are them picking the elite guys and going after them, especially because, we talk about like the wide receivers. We had exactly what we expected. We talked about it for weeks. Here are the guys we expect to be in the wide receiver group. That didn't happen. And nope. With the guys that we got, we're going to win championships. So you can come be a part of it and be, the number 1, number 2, number 3 receivers throughout the industry that everybody thinks are, the best. Or you can be the 8, 9, and 10 who fit our parameters, and we're going to put you over there and watch you ball out. So I just think they're a lot more confident. I don't say more confident, but they're confident in their system and their it's year 9 for Kirby. He knows what works and what doesn't. So if Rashad Johnson fits his, 6'2", 190 can run, then that's their guy. Mm-hmm. Speaking of, we had the question about playing centers. And yeah, there aren't a lot of centers in high school that wind up going to college. It's usually a guard or an offensive tackle in high school that moves to center. Talk to me though real quick about Cortez Smith.
Yeah, I mean, Cortez has been on his radar for forever. I feel like I've interviewed this kid a million times. He's been at, I can't even tell you how many games, practices. I mean, this dude knows as much about Georgia as you possibly could as a guy going into his senior year. Georgia wants him as a center, and he's told me a few times Kirby Smart and Stacey Searles have told him he's the next Cedric Van Pran. Rowdy, you covered Cedric in high school. I don't know size-wise how they stack up. I think Cortez is a little heavier than the 305 now.
315.
But a guy he's got the athleticism to play left tackle for Parkview, which is or was 7A football in Georgia. So he's not going against nobodies at Parkview. And again, a guy at Georgia, it's so different, very different than the defensive backs that we've had tonight. Georgia's had Cortez Smith circled for a long time. And he is, you've got Dontrell Glover, who's an interior guy. You've got Cortez Smith, who is an interior guy. You've got Mason Short, who could go either way, inside or outside. And now you look and try to find a couple tackles and call it a day on another very good offensive line class. But Cortez is he plays with the chip on his shoulder. Not very nice guy off the field, nice guy, quiet guy, kind of like Cedric Van Pran. But you get him on the field and he will mess you up for sure.
Yeah, and going as a commitment ceremony, I didn't know that I was talking with a couple other people that I think he should really be a junior in high school. I don't know if he skipped a grade younger, but I mean, I just remember watching. He was the first Parkview Kell last year in the Corky Kell. Jed and I, we rode up there, and I remember you were like, take some pictures, number 77, and I was like, oh, is that Cortez Smith kid? And I was expecting him to be like 6'1", 6'2". I mean, he's a tall 6'3", and he's wide, but he's super athletic. Like in this clip, he just pile drives kids into the into the dirt. And I mean, he's one of those guys that's going to be, if it's in the future, if it's a drop back pass and they hit Chauncey Bowens in the flat, Cortez Smith is going to be running downfield with him. I feel like this is a guy that just gives a lot of effort and just has a really, really high ceiling.
Just on this film alone, I've seen him play left tackle, I've seen him play left guard, I've seen him play right guard, and then I've seen him play center. Hadn't seen him at right tackle yet, but it seems like whichever one is pulling, that's where he's located at. So he's athletic. He plays with low pads. You see it like when he's pulling, you see him getting out how athletic he is, how good his feet are, and then I mean he has the ability to knock you off the ball. I mean a lot of times, centers going up against the big nose guards, the Jordan Davises of the world, and he has the ability to really put to halt to elite defensive tackles. And I've loved Cortez Smith's game because you see him at camps and he wants to go out at tackle, and then you move him in the inside and he can stonewall a defensive tackle, and then he has the feet to play on the outside and can shut down speed rushers. So his all around game is fantastic.
I like that. So if you're looking at the list for folks that are just catching up with us, again, I was out of town for a couple, like 10 days, which just happened to coincide on the 2 Mondays that we needed to do the show. And then I was sick last week, so we didn't have it. So it's been a while since we've had one of our shows. But while I was on vacation, they got Shamari Earls, Jaylen Morgan, Rashad Johnson, Cortez Smith, and Jazir Jackson. Well, I was in town with Cortez Smith. So
we got a chance to see Talon Taylor at camp.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. We didn't get to talk about that. We did do an update right after all those guys at camp. But yeah, the Rivals camp was fantastic. So got some good clips that we appreciate Bobby Andrews coming down and loading it up. But what does all that mean? Well, it means that Georgia, and again, Jazir Jackson counts towards the class of 2024, but the class of 2025, Georgia's now ranked number 3 in the nation with 21 commits. Average star rating of 3.71, 15 4 stars, and 6 3 stars. No 5 stars yet, but they're coming. They're coming. Long way to go to catch Ohio State with 4 different 5-star commits. That's pretty impressive. Alabama's number 2. Georgia's right behind them. Say right behind. They've got about 4 more 4 stars than Georgia does. But Georgia will catch them, I think, pretty quickly. But it's going to be tough to catch Ohio State up there with its 4 different 5-star players. So, but hey, if you're number 3, that ain't bad, especially when your biggest fish are still on the line. So,
I think a lot of depend on the fringe guys that are around the 30 mark, where they end up 5 stars. I think that'll play a big role into how high Georgia moves up.
Yeah, like
you were talking about, like if Shamari Earl is way up, that could be one. A guy like Todd Robinson is a 3-star right now. If he moves up to a 4-star, that bumps you up a little bit. So there's a long way to go and a lot more points to be added, even among guys who are committed, let alone the Elijah Griffins of the world, Justice Terry. Juan Gaston is a top 200 player. If Georgia lands him, second linebacker, maybe there's a lot, like you said, Rowdy, there's a lot still out there.
You got Isaiah Gibson that should be, a lot higher than he is, but Jed has just been really failing at his job this summer. But he's been pitching a lot, so
and I mean, again, there's me and Lance have made many a trip down to Warner Robinson. Not all of them have gone super great. So again,
hoping we see him this week.
These things are. I hold grudges in these. If that's not clear to everybody out there, so it happens. But yeah, I mean, Elijah Griffin too, but Isaiah Gibson might be just too good to let pettiness bring him down, because every time we see him like Lance, you saw him at a padded camp not long ago, I think, and he's just like, he looks like a freak show. I mean, he looks absolutely like a man amongst boys, and Warner Robins is pretty good high school football too. So, that kid is he's different. I'm very excited to see him play at some point this year.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy Barbary says, "Go ahead and move him up, Jed."
I mean, he almost, like, I think he's in that good spot of, I think it was Jordan. Let's see, it was Joseph Jonah Ajayi last year, and Jordan Hall the year before. I think he is in that sweet spot of like going to have a great senior year, and then go to one of the All-Star games and blow up and end up 5-star fringe. Like, he's in that. I think he's like 155-ish right now or something like that.
151.
He's got everything right in front of him to make a crazy rise over the next 4 months or so.
Hey, speaking of the number 7 player in the country, just got a message saying that he'll be on campus this weekend.
Oh, there you go.
Good news.
Nice.
Breaking news.
Dun, 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 dun.
And that's Elijah Griffin if you're listening.
Look at that. Look how fast that was. Good Lord. That's production value, baby. Elijah Griffin on the screen there, the number 7 player in the nation, 6'6", 285 pounds. Pretty sure. How many of you guys predicted he winds up in this class? Lance, Trent, Ben. Okay, three guys at UGAsports have predicted that. I'll probably add mine here in a minute because I think he winds up at Georgia. If he's coming up this weekend, that kid's going to be a Georgia Bulldog. No question in my mind. The bigger question that does lead me to the question of what the hell's going on this weekend? They've had the dead period for a long time. Practice, we broke the news about a month or so ago. Georgia's practice starts next Thursday, August 1st. This weekend, Georgia's going to be hosting a bunch of guys. Jed, what's going on?
Yeah, well, Trent just delivered the news of the headliner right there, Elijah Griffin. Another 5-star defensive lineman, Justice Terry, might be in town. We've been asking around. Haven't gotten a firm answer. I don't know that the Terry crew knows exactly what they're doing yet, if they're going anywhere. So that's one we'll for sure be keep. Last time I talked to Justice, he told me he was planning to be back at the end of July, but that was, I don't know, a month ago maybe. So that one's a possibility. As far as the 25 class goes, Isaiah Gibson, as we mentioned, a lot of commits. Ryan Montgomery will be back from Ohio. Talon Taylor, Landon Rold, and Shamari Earls, Jaylen Morgan.
Well, before you get there, why are they coming back? What's going on?
It's I don't know if it has a name or not, like the annual cookout event. And this is kind of it's your last chance to see guys before their seasons really get going, B, before your seasons get going. So the next opportunities, about 4 visits, are game days, which, are great recruiting events, but the coaches have also got their own stuff going on game days. So before practice starts, before these guys get games going on Friday nights. So big opportunity there. 26 guys, Jackson Cantwell, who is a 5-star offensive tackle, will be in town from Missouri, right, Roddy? Yep. Aaron Gregory, the receiver, who is a absolute freak show from Douglas County, and Georgia was kind of out of it for a while, and now they're back in it in a big way. It's very interesting.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, and he was there.
He was out.
What day? He was there in June, June 12th. So he's back for another visit, which is very, very, very interesting to me.
One of the best I've ever seen.
He is amazing. He's I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's bigger than 173 pounds. He's probably at least 180, I would say. And he's just phenomenal. There's a reason. I don't, Roddy, what do we have him ranked? What do I have him ranked? Excuse me. What do I have him ranked right now at receiver? Probably
right now you have him number 21 in the nation, number 3 at his position.
There is a very, very, very decent. I don't know what the other. I think Chris Henry is probably number 1. There's a very decent chance this kid ends up as a number 1 receiver in the class before it's all said and done, because he's absolutely phenomenal. And his teammate Devin Carter, new teammate Devin Carter, I should say.
Number 2 receiver.
It could also, it's the number 2 receiver, and could also be back in Athens this weekend. So we're still working on the visitor list. It'll be posted either tomorrow or Thursday over on the UGAsports Vault, which is why you should be a member of the Vault. But Elijah Griffin, I think no matter what the list looks like the rest of the week, as we fill it out, Elijah Griffin's probably going to be the biggest name on that list for sure.
Yeah, we should probably get a story up on that right off the bat, because that's the big one. You get a 5-star uncommitted guy on campus again who's been coming, and 3 of the staffers at UGAsports already have him predicted there'll be 4 before the night's over. I'm gonna put mine in. And then you get Aaron Gregory on campus. I think that's phenomenal. Devin Carter possibly. Here's a crazy idea. Brent, could you see a situation where this year they get Justice Terry and Elijah Griffin, 2 5-star defensive tackles, then next year get maybe Aaron Gregory and or Devin Carter?
It's definitely a possibility.
But I'm a little punch drunk. I'm still a little vertigo, but that would make me dizzy as hell.
Landing 2 top 20 players in the country is every year is pretty normal for Georgia, but landing 2 wide receivers in that category is pretty abnormal. So I'm not gonna put any bet on that happening.
Okay, put them in your predicted class.
I'm not gonna go all out for that prediction, but if Georgia can land Aaron Gregory, just not even Devin Carter, just Aaron Gregory, that is a big
Pickens-esque.
I think
a big, like, when you talk about, not that Kirby Smart necessarily cares about these things, but when you talk about perception and things like that, like that is would be a big, because Aaron Gregory is a national recruit. He knows a lot of guys who play 7-on-7. He's a well-known and well-liked guy across the country, and what that would do for the perception of Georgia's receiver recruiting if he ended up in Athens would be huge.
Another guy coming to town, I want to get y'all's thoughts on this one. Jonte Gilbert, thoughts?
I think me and Jed, we've had our hash out for this one. Dating back to probably about June of last year.
Forever ago. Seems like.
He was committed to Ohio State. Didn't have Ohio State in his top 5 when I talked to him while he was still committed. Then Georgia was hanging around. Then Georgia disappeared. Georgia got back into it early spring, was telling him that he'd come in and play cornerback because they originally recruited him as a safety. Then they started talking about cornerback. Then he disappeared again, and now he's appearing back in Athens this coming weekend. It seems like NC State has a leg up coming into this weekend, but I think Georgia's been there since day one, or it's a school that he really liked since day one. And I think it was just a matter of Georgia showing him the attention that he wanted, per se, because a lot of these kids are, if you don't text them or call them in 2 or 3 days, it's they're not showing you the attention. So I think depending on how this visit goes, I think Georgia could land him if they want to land him, but we'll see following this visit, see how things go, see what we hear. But I think Georgia is in a spot to, whether they want to push for another cornerback or not, that's yet to be determined. But Gilbert's definitely in the mix for that last spot if they do.
I don't know that I will have the mental bandwidth to write a how we got here story for Jonte Gilbert if it comes down to
coward.
it. Now here's so I spoke with him in June, and he camped in Athens and took an official visit. They worked him out as a corner. He ran a 4.51 in the 40, which was solid, especially as a high school guy. And he says they're coming hard after me now. Kirby Smart expressed that he really wanted me. He had meetings with Dante Williams during the official visit, who we knows going back to USC. So when you look at okay, with the corners Georgia's got, do you say, hey, we've got this guy in Shamari Earls who's a freak show? If you want Jonte Gilbert as a corner, which over the past couple of months he's been consistent in saying that they do you take him? And if he works out, great. And if he doesn't, then it's not a miss that cripples your defensive back room for the next 2 or 3 years. That's definitely possible. And that's a guy that, they have a relationship with. Like you said, Trent, they have been involved with him for a couple years. So they know him. They know his family by this point. So I think this is the one really that we need to watch, because talking about does a corner come up, if they decide to go ahead and take to what you said, Trent, if Georgia decides they want him and make that clear, I think they get him. But if they decide to look somewhere else, that's when we'll be on the lookout for, senior film, who pops up on the radar over the next couple months. But Gilbert's commit date is coming up in the next couple of weeks.
August 12th, I believe.
Down. Let's see. Live and in person. August 10th. So that's 2 weeks from this coming Saturday, I think, or this coming Sunday. So this, I believe, right, Trent? Because it's a dead period. This will be his last visit before he commits.
Yep.
So,
keep an eye on.
I would think this will be he'll ask it as straight as he can ask it. Am I a take? Do I have a spot?
Mm-hmm.
If I had to guess. And then a decision will be made in the next couple weeks after that. NC State's involved, UCF's involved. I don't know about Georgia Tech anymore, but it's a very interesting that Georgia is the spot he was chosen to get back to this week. I would think, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I would think the fact that he's chosen to come back here makes it seem like he at least believes he could have a spot. It hasn't been expressively made clear to him that he's not a take.
This kind of reminds me in different ways, but Ryan Montgomery, visiting and then, kind of going silent, then visiting. It's like he wanted something so bad that he kept coming back until he finally got the green light, and then, he jumped right on it. This kind of reminds me of that situation. Does Gilbert get the green light, or, do they explore elsewhere? I think that'll be the ultimate decision, following this weekend.
Well, like we were talking about earlier, Georgia might have 5 criteria that you have to meet. Gilbert may meet 3 of them or 4. But there's other guys that are 4 and 5. So they want to see how it shakes out, but they obviously think that he's in that group. So it's where your ship winds up on their list. So I can definitely see that. We had a question I want to move on to Chroma. Tough Stuff asks, whose main Chroma visits? Michael Carroll going to attend IMG, visit the Alabama game. Any chance Georgia tries for a flip? So talk to me a little bit about, I know he's not on our list yet, but what about Chroma maybe being in town this weekend?
When I talked to Usmani last week in person down at the camp in Perry, he told me that his Georgia was in his top two. This right now it's Georgia and Auburn. Many believed it was going to be Florida State, but he's looking to get back soon. He doesn't know when exactly that date is right now, nor does he know a commitment date. But I mean, you talk about a kid that can and a lot of people a lot of people question his speed, but I got to see it up in person for the first time last week. And he's a power back, but Lee County would split him out wide, and he's being covered by Perry, who won state championship in 5A last year and returns a lot of their starters. I mean, they put him out wide. He'd burn the receiver every time and just catch the ball in the end zone. And he told me that, he didn't really think Georgia wanted him, 4 or 5 months ago. But then when Josh Crawford was hired, Crawford coached his brother at Lee County and he didn't really know him back then, but he's developed that relationship with him. And, Georgia's got himself in the top two, just not sure when the next date he's going to be back.
Georgia don't have many guys like him on campus. They kind of going at more of the like Nate Frazier type running backs where they can catch the ball out of the backfield and more like all-purpose back type kids. But I guess Rob would be one. But I mean, he just brings a different dimension to Georgia if he chose, because this is like, I don't think he has the speed of Nick Chubb, but it's like he bounces off defenders like Nick Chubb. Like
he just rocked that poor quarterback.
He was on the board, compared him to like Kerryon Johnson at Auburn a few years ago. And not that I'm very good at comparisons, but I like that, because he like just the balance, and there's spins, there's jukes, there's little stutter steps. Like he's got that whole package as far as elusiveness goes in a bigger frame. So like you said, Lance, Josh Crawford's done an amazing job of getting Georgia a real seat at the table, so to speak. And this one, it's like Florida State, Tennessee, and Auburn's really the other ones. Again, I was told that he's, the source I talked to today didn't think he was visiting this weekend, but it wouldn't shock me if he does. We'll keep our ears out for that one for sure.
All right, give me the kid I want you guys to talk about. You mentioned Jackson Cantwell coming the 5-star offensive tackle, 6'8", 300 pounds, #1 offensive tackle in the nation. #2 player in the nation. I think that's also a really, really big deal.
Yeah, and he's made this is I want to say 4th visit maybe to Georgia, unofficially from Missouri. So that catches David Sanders. This is, if you want to draw a David Sanders comparison, being a 5-star offensive tackle. David Sanders lives 3 hours away. Jackson Cantwell he's a pretty decent flight away. And then drive to Athens, and he's still made his way down here. So Georgia's definitely a factor in this. Missouri with the in-state kids and the NIL and all that stuff, they have had a lot of success hanging on to those guys. But I would say Georgia's probably the top competition for Missouri, I would say right now. As many times as he's been to Athens, he's visiting. I think he's taken a couple other visits while he's down in the South, but I think Georgia is the preeminent school outside of Missouri to watch for Jackson Cantwell.
And his high school, it's like something from Star Wars.
Yeah. Nixa art. Is that it says Nixa art. Is that real?
Nixa R2.
It's Pixar's cousin. Lesser known movie studio, Nixar. But yeah, I mean he's and he's been another guy who he's only in 2026. He's going into his junior year. But he's been on the radar for a while as well.
And talking about getting offensive tackles, there's your guy. Let him and big Jazir Jackson battling out in a couple of years. 6'8" and 6'11" on the other side.
That was awesome.
Well, so you miss on Sanders and you get this kid in the next class. I mean, I feel like that would definitely make up for it, just with his talented and how highly rated he is.
Yeah, he's pretty good. All right, so what is the plan for this weekend coverage-wise? Big weekend. Do they all come in on Friday? They all come in on Saturday? Is a Saturday-Sunday deal?
It's kind of like the scavenger hunt. I mean, I'm sure a lot of guys will get here Friday night, and then Saturday is they got like water slides and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like an all day deal, kind of like a scavenger hunt. So yeah, hopefully we'll be getting reactions from these guys starting Saturday night, and hopefully be turning around interviews the rest of the week. Lance and I will be at GHSF media days the next couple of days, so we'll be talking to some guys from the state of Georgia. And yeah, I'm excited that the season's almost here. Like, we only got a couple more weeks till scrimmage games start, which is very, very exciting because there's a lot of guys I'm excited to get out and see, and guys that like a lot of guys in this class that I haven't seen play before. Like I hadn't seen Isaiah Gibson play, haven't seen Todd Robinson play. I haven't
Obviously, you haven't seen those two play because look at their ranking.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't seen Ethan Barber play in a game. There's a lot of guys I'm looking forward to. I haven't seen Thomas Blackshear play. So it's going to be a fun fall for sure.
You can keep going down the list of the work you haven't done, or you can tell me who's going to be the next commit.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see if there's any. So
Jonte Gilbert, did you?
August 10th. Juan Gaston is August 2nd. And that's what, next Saturday, right?
Next Friday.
Next Friday. I think that's one that just Georgia has had a Georgia has looked like the favorite for a while. It'll be interesting to see if he ends up going anywhere this weekend. I got a I don't know message back about him today, so we'll see if he shows up on campus. But Georgia's my pick for him right now, again, as they look to add a couple of tackle bodies to close out this offensive line class.
What about Jontavius Wyman?
Oh, yeah. If we're looking at 2026, he's committing on Saturday. 2026 defensive back from Jonesboro was going to commit, what was it, Lance, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then moved it back to this Saturday because Jonesboro is having a media day. I think a couple other Jonesboro kids are committing. And yeah, I think Georgia is, from what I've heard, I think Georgia's in a really good spot there. They've done a great job. They offered him in, I want to say April or May, and have just surged to the forefront since then. So I like Georgia. I think they're in a good spot, but we will see on Saturday. Georgia's my pick right now.
6'1" safety, 175 pounds out of Jonesboro, 39 offers.
In previous interviews with him, he said Georgia wants him as a corner. If he does commit, he would be the second commit in the class, joining Jared Curtis, but obviously getting that defensive class started with the defensive back, which I'm sure Kirby Smart absolutely loves.
Well, if you guys think he's going to go to Georgia, let's get in some future Cats picks here soon. Trent's never scared to do that, so we'll let him start it off. All right, so the next two commits could be a 2025 offensive tackle and a 2026 safety/cornerback. Anybody else, Trent, on your radar that we need to keep an eye on? You're going to say Justice Terry.
I'm not going to say Justice Terry. I mean, you can have him on your radar, but I told you they're trying to win the end game. You ain't trying to win the game right now, and they would gladly take his commitment back. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that they're not pushing for a commitment right now, and I don't think it needs to be done because this is a recruitment that's not going to be done until December, along with Elijah Griffin. I think both of those are going to be National Signing Day, and if Georgia goes out on early signing day, landing 2 5-star defensive tackles, then it's going to be a good day in Athens. As far as I think the wide receiver class is pretty wrapped up. I think tight end, besides C.J. Wiley, I think Georgia's going to continue to pursue there. Tight end, you look at offense line room, I think there's some work to do on the defense side of the ball, but looking at who Georgia has left, what targets Georgia has left, I think you're looking at the guys we talked about. Maybe Jonte Gilbert. We'll see what happens after the visit this coming weekend.
So a running back, maybe a wide receiver, 2 defensive tackles.
Another linebacker inside.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, the 2025 class is wrapping up pretty well. The 2026 is on deck. Georgia only has, as we've said, the one commit right now, but they might get another one here in Mr. Wyman pretty soon. So anyway, until next, we'll try to do the show on time next Monday. We'll be back at 8:30. Next week, I'd like to do a lot more. We'll have reaction from the cookout, the water slides, the big recruiting weekend there. But later in that week, it'll also be, the first day of fall camp. You guys will have gone to media day. We'll have a bunch of updates from that. But I'd like to have a question-heavy day from our viewers next week. And we're going to start putting this show behind the YouTube paywall. So the folks who are members of our YouTube channel will be able to see it. But of course, all the members at UGA Sports will be able to see it. So we got to figure out how to do that, because we want to be sure that if we put this behind the paywall, the whole point of that is so that we can talk a lot more frankly about what we're seeing in the recruiting world. We're not going to come on here and give away all the stuff that we have at UGA Sports behind the paywall there. We can't come give it here on a free show. So if we put this show behind the paywall so that only the folks at UGA Sports, or members of our YouTube channel can watch it, then we can speak a lot more freely. And we can tell you some stuff that we just can't say to the general public. So I think this show could have a fun zinger next Monday night, 8:30, with your questions and our no holds barred answers. So be prepared for a kind of a more interesting show next week if we can get it worked out. Anyway, for Jed, Lance, and Trent, I'm Rodney DeBulsey. We will see you next week. Take care.